Welcome to Code with Sally. The sessions run every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Unless something I cannot make the session, I will announce earlier ahead of time. The recordings for the sessions can be found on Code with Sally YouTube channel. There is multiple playlists. There is 2 of them that will be interest for anyone who's missing a session or want to cover the previous sessions. One for the recording of each session we have, and the other one is like how to connect, for example, Visual Studio Code to your org, or moving forward, I may add small videos there. Today, our topic is, we started last week, the Salesforce Objects, the sObjects, so we'll continue today with the same topic. For anyone who didn't join the session last time, the recording of the previous session is there. I will do my best to give a brief refresher of what we covered last session. So if you missed it, you don't feel like it's a brand new topic for you as well. So Salesforce objects are, as we said, last week, they are we treat them as, we said they are very important. They represent standard or custom objects. Anyone who's coming from admin background, we have sObjects. They represent the objects in Salesforce, like the custom objects or standard objects. And in terms of Apex, we can say they behave as the classes, and we explained classes when we were talking about object-oriented. So the class will behave as the type, and then we will have the attributes, and each attribute we have in the class of an sObject will be a representation for a field. So if you have a first name in the contact, you will have a property or an attribute called first name. And we explained last time quickly how we can create it or be treated as objects and classes and objects. And we explained that, for example, here you have the contact, which is an sObject. We treat it as the class, and then we give a variable name, which will be the object that we'll create. And we do the constructor to do the initialization of our objects to be an empty object, and all the attributes will be empty. And as we learned with the objects and classes, you use the object name, which is the variable name dot, and then you can use the attribute and set the value. So all of that we covered last time. And then we saw how we can deal with these sObjects. We saw how we can use SOCO to retrieve data from Salesforce and put it in an sObject or a list of sObjects. If we are returning, our SOCO return multiple records. And we saw how we can retrieve or try the SOCO in the Salesforce Inspector Chrome plugin. And also we discussed the 4 basic operations to create, how we can create by using insert, read the SOCO, and how you return it in sObject. And we saw how we can update. So if you have an account and you retrieved it through SOCO, you can update the values and update in the Salesforce object data itself. And we saw how we can delete it, because sometimes you don't need extra records, or you want to save all, you have retention to keep data maximum, for example, for 2 years. But if the account is not active after the 2 years, you have to delete it. So the delete operation would be useful for such scenarios. So that's briefly. And also we covered the best practice of having your code in a try and catch. And we saw together that there is different types of exceptions that we can catch. The ones that related to inserting, updating, deleting, doing a DML statement, we'll catch it with the DML exception. And we took it further as well last time. And we saw how we can create our custom error or custom exception type, and how we can through it and how we can catch it. So all of that, if you want to learn more about it and check it in more depth, you will find it in the recording of the previous session. But that's just a brief like refresher of what we covered. Anyone has a question based on what we covered last time or something they want to understand more before moving to the new topic of today or the remainder of the presentation about sObjects? I don't see questions in the chat and I don't see hands raised. So I think we are good. Again, for anyone who's joining today for the first time, feel free to stop me anytime and ask me questions, and I will do my best to answer you so it's easier for you to follow along with us. Okay, so today we want to learn, last time we saw when we talked about the creation and how we have the insert operation, we just checked it with a single record. So let's refresh this one first, and then we see what do we want to do next. So what we did last time, let me remove all of that. We don't need it. And we'll create an account together and we'll try to insert. So what we want to do is we want to create an account. So the sObject for the standard object account will be account. Then we'll say account object as the object name or the variable name. And then I will say new account. And last time we were doing account object dot name, and we said, for example, sObjects 2, we give it a name, and then we said for the insertion, we do insert, and then account object as the insert operation. One thing that we didn't do last time, and I just want you to know that it's possible, you can remove the account name equal and put it here in the constructor, and along with the value, sorry. You remove the account object because that's the constructor. You don't need to specify the object name. You'll just say here name and then take the value we have here, and we are setting it directly in the constructor. And we learned about different overloads of constructor and how we can have multiple overloads of constructor when we spoke about object-oriented and classes and objects. So that's kind of available for us to use. We don't need to create a different overload. It's available for us in sObjects. So you can do it in a single line, create an account object from the account class or account sObject class. And then you can set the initial values that we know that we want to set between the brackets of the constructor, and then I will insert. So let's try first in the inspector to make sure that we don't have it before creating. So I will open another tab. I'll go to the arrow on the right and I will do data export. And we are covering so-called statements in more depth in the next topic after we finish the sObjects. So for now, we are just taking it like the basic scenario. And let's say here, I want to select ID name from account, where name equal sObject2, for example. And if I run here, it will tell me there is no data exported. That means we don't have this account already. And let's try now to execute it. If I execute it now and go to debug, no exception, nothing happened. And if I do and run my so-called statement, now I see it got created. So that's kind of what we did last time, nothing new. The only thing that is new that you can, instead of passing the attributes like that, dot name equal sObject2 here in separate lines. So if you have 3 attributes, I would do 3 lines. I could just do like that, comma, the second attribute, the third attribute, and add it all together. Okay, let's say now I know, for example, I want to add 3 accounts. So I have here, that's number 3, and I name it sObject1. And I know I want to have another account, and another a third account. And let's do here one, this one, two, and a third account. And I will name them here as object 4 and as object 5. We can do that for sure, and we can insert each one, like we create the first account and inserted the second account and inserted the third account and insert. It's possible, but it's not a good practice. Like we don't like to do that. We like always to talk about how we can bulkify the operation and how we can make it all go in one DML as a bulk instead of having to do one by one. And that's the first thing that we want to learn today, how we can bulkify this. To bulkify this, what we can do is that, let me take this here and comment it. I will comment it here and put account 1, and I will define account 2 without inserting. I'm not inserting yet. And I will define the third account. So now I have 3 accounts objects defined. And what I will do is I will create a list of account. We discussed after the primitive data type, for anyone who's new, we discussed as well the collections. Collections cover sets, maps, and lists. And the list is type of the collections. And collections means that you can have, instead of one variable that has one value, we can have a variable that contains multiple values together. So here we'll create a list of account, and I will do here list accounts. And we agreed we have to do initialization for our list, so it's not null. And then I can insert the 3 accounts in them. So I will do here list accounts.add, and I will add account object 1. That means now my list has only one item, which is account 1. I will add the other 2 here. I will have account 2 and account 3. So now my list has 3 accounts, 1 and 2 and 3, all together in one list. What I can do is I can do insert, and instead of here we were inserting account by account, I will insert the list of accounts together. So that's how we will do the bulkification here, that we don't insert one by one. I have a list of accounts and I will insert them all together at once. So now if I do here to see the data export, I'll change it to be like. Like means I don't want an exact name, and I want anything that starts with sObject, and then I do the exclamation mark and the percentage to mean, that means that I care that it starts with sObject, but it can end with anything. So if I do the export, I have only 2. So I will see here if I will get 3 and 4 and 5 after running the code. Now, if I run the code and I will execute it and I will do the debug here, no exception, nothing shows that there is an error. And if I do the export, I have here sObject 2, 3, 4, 5. So the 3 accounts got inserted, and you can see that created by, I can see who the user that got linked that it's created by, and the created date as well. So I will see here. So you will see that all of them got created, and they got created at the same time, the 3 of them. And they all got created by my user because that's the user that is running the code. So that's the first step that we want to learn. It's always possible to do an insertion one by one, but it's a bad practice. It's a good practice always to think about bulkification. And why I'm stressing about that, because after like the SOCO and SOSO topic, we'll be talking about triggers. And when we'll talk about triggers, triggers is always, you'll hear people talking bulkification. So one of the bulkifications techniques is to avoid inserting item by item or record by record. Whenever you can, it's always a good idea to create a list and insert them at once. Any questions about the bulkification so far? We're good. No questions in the chat. Okay, so I will move to the next thing I want you to learn about bulkification. And to learn about it, I will take an example and I will run it for you. Here I have this example. I created a list of accounts, and here we are doing, that's another way for initialization for a list, that you can initialize it as, instead of an empty list, we learned how we can pass the default values you want it to be used for the initialization. And here, what I'm trying to do, here, let's test issue 1. I will name it like that, and to be easier to find, test issue 2. And let me put here, I want to search if there is any account that's the name start with test issue, and I have 0. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to run this code. And as you can see here, I didn't put the name for the second one, but I have test issue 1, test issue 2 for the first and the third. Anyone can tell me, what do you expect will be the output when I run this code? I'm looking for volunteers. Okay, Stephen, error, missing field.
You didn't add anything to your list.
The list here, I added them, but I added them as default value. You remember when we learned about?
Okay, yeah, test 1, test 3, second one's null. So it's going to be test.
Let me print it for you.
You should have 3.
Okay, so do you expect me if I run this code and run here the execute, will we have 2 records, 3 records, 0 record created?
3.
3, okay. And Stephen, like you had a guess, can you let me know? Okay, your guess is 0. Okay, let's see together if it will be 3 or 0. I will execute it, and it didn't reach even. Okay, let's.
No, you
This
get
is
no.
line 6. Line 6, it says I have an error. Okay, yeah, sorry, that's my bad. It's a plus, not a comma. Okay, so here, that's what I was expecting. It was saying it threw an error, as Stephen said. It says like line 8, we have an error because a required field missing. So it's saying that the name field is required and it's missing in line 8. And if I go to the logs, I want to show you here. I want to open the log. You'll find that the accounts has the first account with name test issue 1, second account, the name is null, and the third account is test issue 3. So the issue or the problem of a missing name is not valid for the 3 accounts. It's valid only for the second account that I'm trying to add to the list. So we had a guess here that I will find 3, maybe 2 the valid ones, but the right answer was that we will find 0 accounts created. And the reason is because the whole insert operation failed because one of the accounts failed to be inserted. And that's what caused the issue to happen, that one of them is missing a required field, so all of them fail to be inserted. The issue now, in real life, sometimes you will have, for example, a CSV, or you're trying to insert multiple accounts, and sometimes you are trying to insert 20, 30 accounts. Sorry. Does it make sense if I have 30 accounts to fail the 30 accounts if only one account is missing a required field? The answer should be no, because in real life, you may have missing values due to enforced validation or required field that is missed from being set in some of the accounts or records, but I want to be able to insert all the ones that succeeded and ignore the ones that will fail. So in general, this is how we do bulkification, a list of accounts, and we insert them. But the thing that we want to learn about is there is another way for inserting the accounts that allows me to insert the ones that are succeeded and ignore the ones that are failed. Let's search for the Salesforce here, database class insert method. I always prefer to show you here, so you learn how to read the Salesforce documentation. Let's see here, database methods. I want the insert here. Insert. And we learned how to read like the signature of the method. So here it returns something called database save result, and we learn more about it. And it takes the list of the accounts or the records you want to insert. But the most important thing, it takes a Boolean called all or none. The Boolean all or none, it's very important to help me to be able to insert everything. It's a setting when you call this method to say, I want to be able to insert all or insert none, or if you have it as a false, it will insert the ones that it can insert and ignores the ones that fail. So it's not all or none. So let's try it. If I do here, a list. I'm sorry, my allergies are too bad today, so forgive me for that. But here, I call the database.insert method and passing the list of accounts that I want to insert. And for the all or none, I'm passing false. Means if there is some that can succeed, I want them to succeed. If there is some that will fail, let them fail. But allow it to run. And let's run it first with true. That means all or none. If all pass, insert them. If any of them fails, don't insert any. So it will behave as if I'm calling insert accounts directly. If I have the parameters, the parameter of all of or none set to true. Let's execute this. It will give me here the same error that a required field is missing and it will fail to run. And if I go to the data export and try to find any account that starts with test issue, I will find 0. So it behaves the same way as if I'm running insert accounts. Let's try to run it with false. I will run it now with false. And that means I want to be able to insert the ones that will pass and fail the ones that will like validation error or have missing fields that they will fail. I will execute it now. And I didn't get the error. And if I run the export, I'll find that test issue 1 got inserted and test issue 3 got inserted. So that's again something you have to think about when you are working on something. Which behavior you want? Do you want to be able to insert the ones that will succeed and ignore the ones that will fail, or you want to fail all of them together? So that's why we want to learn about database.insert and the parameter all or none that it allows us to use. Sorry. So what about the result here, the response, or the result when we call? We learned when we talked about object-oriented and methods that each method can return a data type. And here the data type that it returns, it calls save result. The benefit of save result that we can go through it and we can know exactly which field failed, which records failed, and why, and which one succeeded. Russell, I see your hand up. What's
That's
your
what I was going to ask about. I was curious where you find how would you know which ones didn't pass?
Yeah, we'll check it with the result. The save result, the usage for it is for that reason. Let me grab a code and then we'll go through it together. So I have results. Results is a list. So we'll loop through it. Here I tried the like the for loop with the counter, like you can loop with the the for each directly. Both of them is good. But here we went for results. We know we check there is a method for it that checks is success. That means like the first result is for the first record it tried to insert. Is it success? It will tell you, okay, yes, it passed successfully. And this is the record ID that got created because we are creating in Salesforce records. So, and we learned about the ID data type. The ID data type is not a data type that we define or we insert the values for it. It got generated when we insert the records. So it will be generated for us. Else, that means it's not success. That means it failed. So we'll go through the errors, and that's another method. We can go through the errors. We get the errors, and it will return a list of database.error. So we loop through it with the for each, one by one, and we can show what's the error message, what was the status code, which fields got involved in this error. So it can give me more details for the records that got failed, why it got failed, and which fields caused it to fail. Let's try it and see it in action. So let me put this as 4, for example, and this is as 5, and execute. Again, no exception. If I run now, I will have 1 and 3 and 4 and 5 as well. So because I have all or none false, if I go to the debug log, I will see here, it will tell me that the first record was successful because the first record, if you remember, that was the one where we put the name, the test issue 4, and it told me that the ID here is this one. We go here and I try to search, it matched test issue 4 that got inserted with no issues. Is the same ID. So first result is for the first record in the list that we try to insert. Record 1, that's the one that failed to be inserted. And the errors, the error message is required fields are missing. The status code, required field missing. And then the fields that got involved in this error or caused this error, it gave me that its name. If it was more than one, it would give me like comma separated values. And then the record 2, it tells me that it got inserted successfully. And that's here. We'll find that this test issue 5. Again, in my opinion, like the save result and looping through them and dealing with them is a bit of an advanced topic. So we'll cover it again in the future. Sorry, in more details. But for now, we want to learn about bulkification to avoid inserting record by record, one by one. So always prefer to have them in a list and insert it in a bulk. Second thing is to learn or to think, do I want all of them to be inserted or none if any of them fails? If the answer is yes, you can use insert directly. If the answer is no, then it's better to use Database.Insert with all or none flagged as false. The part of looping through the errors, it's like we covered before, the for loops, so it should be easy. The conditional statements, the if and else should be familiar for you. But again, what we are trying to do is we are trying to loop through one by one of the results because we said if we try to insert 3 records, we'll have 3 results coming because I need to know for each of them, did it fail or it passed? So for the ones that passed, the is success will return true. And that's what happened for us for records 0 and 2. And we'll show the ID for them. Again, all of those are methods available for us from Salesforce, from the classes of database, like the one we opened here, the database class. So all of those are the save results or the database or the classes available by Salesforce. They are giving us those methods that we can use. Else means the is success returned false, and that will happen when the record fails. And we can do a lot of things with it. We can show the error message, get the status code, which field caused it. And it's very important to think how you want to behave. Like if in real life you have a system.debug as I have here and that's it, that means no one will see it unless they have the debug log active and they open and check. So most probably what we do if like there is a lot of like options, there is app exchange for error handling. You can insert and you can like use their functionality to log the error. You can create your custom object for errors and exceptions and log the error in it. You can send an email. You can decide what you want to do with the error, or if you have a UI, you may return to the user. Let's say we are trying to upload a CSV file, we can return to them. Those records got inserted, those records failed, and that's the reason. So it depends on the situation. You will take these errors and do something with them. But that's the main idea of using Database.Insert instead of insert and how that is meant to be bulkification. Any questions so far? Okay, I don't see questions in the chat as well. So, Russell, did I answer your question?
Yes, I'm curious then. So besides like error message, status code, or fields involved, would there be any other helpful errors that you would want to have listed out?
Let's see in the database.error.
Or I guess just commonly used ones.
Mostly like in my day-to-day, it's mainly I care about what's the message, what caused the error, and the fields that caused it. That's mainly what I would care about. But if there is more or not, let's see. So error class. And again, that's something you should be comfortable to do. It's not just me. We are not supposed to memorize like all the values and all the options we have in each class. It's always good to search, open the documentation, and be comfortable reading them. So the error messages, there is no, only get fields. That's the one that we tried, get message, and get status code. So those are the only 3. There is no other available methods to use. If there was more, we'll have them listed under those. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So let me take this code for you. I put it in the chat. I don't know if it's too big or not. It's okay. It went through, and I put it in Slack as well. If anyone wants to go back to it, you have it on Slack. So that's conclude like how we can bulkify. We saw how you can use the basic insert operation and how that can be used for bulkification if we have a list of accounts and we are inserting all of them together. And we saw how it will behave if only one fail, everything will fail, nothing will be inserted. And we saw how we can do partial success. Like it's not like black or white. Like it's not, I have to insert all or fail all. We can use all or none and set it to false to be able to insert the ones that will success or pass and ignore the ones that will fail. So that's something I believe it's important to know and keep it in your mind. The second topic I would love like to touch base on today is how we can be working with records related. Like all the examples we tried last week and today was mainly creating accounts. But in real life as well, usually you have, for example, account and contacts. And you know, in objects, you have contacts related to accounts. So you cannot have the contact without the account. You want to have the account first. So how we do that, in order to be able to work with the parent and child objects or sObjects, what you have to do and keep in mind always is that you have to start with the parent first and then work with the child or insert the child. So let's try an example together. I will want to create account. I create parent record. So I want to create an account. So I will say here account object. I will say here new account and then give it name. And I will say TechCorp. So I have an account called TechCorp. And we said like the first time, first you have to create the parent account and insert it. So we'll insert it. I don't have other accounts in my example, so there is no verification. I will insert this one. Then I will insert the child record. So in that case, the example we want to show, I want to create contacts and insert them for accounts. So let me grab the code for the contacts to save time. So I will have here contact 1, and I will set what's the first name and last name, same first name and last name for the contact 2. The new thing here that we have another field called account ID, and that's something that is already on contacts. So let's say here, I will do contact. You will find here you have first name. I can have last name. I can have as well account ID. And I can run it now. So each contact can be linked. If I want it to be linked to an account, it will have the account ID value. And the account ID, that's a account in Salesforce. So it's the record ID. We said like when we insert an account in Salesforce, that's generate an ID. We don't generate it. Salesforce generated for us. It's the ID, and you will find it usually in the URL app. So that's the ID. If I take this and come here, I find that this is the same value of the account ID in contact. You'll find here that means this account has 2 contacts. And that's why when you create the object from sObject contact here, and you set the attributes, first name, last name, one of the attributes you want to set as well, the parent ID. So I have account ID, and I'm setting here, this one will be account object dot ID, because once the account object is inserted, the ID will be generated and will be available for me to use. Until now, I created only the account. I didn't create the contacts. Anyone can tell me how can I insert the contacts in a bulky way? If you feel comfortable more pasting the code in the chat, I will take it and run it. If you want to tell me what to write, I will write. Any volunteer?
Can you insert it with the SQL command where you want to get that ID,
Which ID?
the account ID?
We have it here because once you insert here, when we run the code, it runs line by line. So here, the account object got created. Here, the account will be inserted. Account object will be inserted here.
Right, but Jen did the insert on the child record.
An ID will be generated. You don't need to do a SQL to get it. It's available for you. And that's why we use account object.id. So that means the account ID of the contact is set to account object.id. It will get the account object ID and use it as the account ID value for the contact here. Make sense, Steve?
Right, that's what I was saying. Use the account ID.
Okay.
But don't you have to insert the contacts?
Yeah, my question is, I want someone to tell me how I can insert them in bulk way now, not one by one. I don't
Mhm.
want to write insert
Yeah.
contact 1 and insert contact 2.
Would you do a list again like we did initially or no?
Yeah. Tell me, what's the type of the list in that case?
Contact?
Contact, yes, correct. So I will have list contacts, and I will do new list of type contact. And you can insert them here, right? As initial value. Contact 1
Yes. Mhm.
and contact 2, right? At
Yes.
this stage, did we insert them yet or not yet?
Hadn't inserted them yet.
So what should we do to insert them?
Insert.
Okay, insert and then list contacts or database.
List contacts.
Yeah, or database.insert if we want to be able to insert some of them if there is a failure. But that way, let me go here and I will search for this account. Where name equal, I want anything with that name to make sure. Okay, so we have one. Let's change the name. Tech Corp code with that. I just want to make sure I don't have one that already with that name. So here, do I have this one? The answer is no. Okay, so let's try it. If I run now, I execute. What will happen is that it will create the account first, get the ID, create the contacts objects, set their account ID to the account we just inserted, and then we'll insert them. So now if I search, I will find that it got created. If I open in Salesforce to view the record, I will see that I have two contacts, John Doe and Jane Smith, the two ones that I had here in the code. So it got created, the account got created, and the contacts got created and linked to the account. So that's what we mean about working with related records. Sometimes you have different like relationships, custom object and child objects custom as well. So always start with the parent and then the child records, because you cannot, let's say if I start with that, like if we don't insert the account object, for example, here, and we insert it after the contacts, it will complain because the account object is not yet inserted and it doesn't have an ID. So it's always a must to start with the parent record, make sure it's inserted so you have its own ID, and then use it to relate the child records to it. Okay, so that's when you are inserting. You start with parent, then child. That will make sure that you have the proper link between the records. So you have, as we saw here, we have the account created, and then we have the contacts linked to the account as expected. So that's very important to keep in mind. Also, that's something we learned about when we go in the SOCO section, because we learned about simple SOCO statements, like how I can get the account and how I can use this SOCO in Apex to return all the accounts in my list. But sometimes you want to fetch the parent with the child record as well in a single query. Instead of like someone can say, I will do a SOCO statements for the parent, get the account, get the ID of the account, then I will do another query to get the child record for this account using the ID of the parent. So you will have two SOCO statements. And also, as we always say, we want to have minimize the SOCO statements we have. So it's better to have parent and child in one go. But we'll learn about this when we go to the next topic after sObjects and we talk about SOCO statements and parent and child, and how in SOCO statements you can get the child records, or you can get, if you are doing your query on the child record, how you can access the parent details as well in the same SOCO. Any questions so far? Okay, we don't have questions in the chat too. The next topic, it's the topic that I would love to keep for next time because it will be harder to start it and stop. So maybe let me give you a glance on how we can do the SOCO statement parent and child together. And that will be a better use of the time, so you have an idea about it. So let me open here the developer console. And I'll do here a list of accounts. And I'll do here LST accounts. And we learned how we do the SOCO here. I'll select here, select name from account, where name equal, for example, this one. So here that will return for me the account that we just created. If I print it here, check accounts, and I print it here. And execute. If I do the debug, I will see that this is the account. And because I know it will return only one, we can do that. We tried it last time. You don't have to always return a list. You can return here account. And I will execute it. Because I know it will return only one sObject, so you can put it in none list. But if you don't know, or you are not 100% sure that your query will return one or two, it's always, you have to put it in a list. Otherwise it can throw you an error that you're trying to assign a list to a single object. Okay, so the thing that we want to do, we said like we can do contacts. Contact, I can do here list contacts, and I can say select first name and last name from contact, where account ID equal, and I can use the value that we got here. So because it's variable and I don't know the value of the account ID, that's how you put it here with a colon and then account.id. That tells the code when it runs that we don't know the ID, and the value will be removed and replaced with the account ID when we run the code, because at that time we know the ID for it. Here, if I print the value, and I print the list of accounts now, and I will execute. Sorry, list of contacts. I will find here, it returned to me the two contacts, no issues, and the account, no issue. And it's perfect, but we want to combine these two together. I don't want to have one query for account and then one query to get the contacts of this account. How we can do that? Let me comment this and show you how we can do it, and we'll learn more about it as well again when we work with sObjects, with SOCO. Here, account object, and I will do,
Oh.
yes, sorry.
Question,
Uh-huh.
the colon goes with the account object? Or does it go with the equal sign?
It goes with the account object.
Okay. Because it doesn't know what the value is.
You mean like that's what you mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It tells the code that the account ID is not something I don't know. And I don't know, like,
Okay.
let me try it as well here. If I do that, I didn't stop at it before. It won't complain. Like, it didn't complain that it's with the equal, but the usage for it, that means it tells the code that this value is generic. Like, I don't have, for example, an ID and I have the value between single quotes for it and it's static. Like, we don't know. Like, maybe one time I run this with this account and the account ID will be XYZ, but another time I will run it with another account, it can be another value. So it tells the code that this is dynamic. So it takes it out and put the value that will come from this value here. Okay, but it didn't cause any issues having a space after the colon and it's close to the equal, or even I guess like that, it won't cause an error. But it's a way to tell the code that it's dynamic, it's not a static value.
Okay.
Okay, so here I have the same query that we had, but what we'll add to it, we'll add, sorry everyone again, we'll add a subquery. So a subquery means here I can add, for example, a billing address. I can add comma separated different values or different fields. Instead of a field, I will have a comma and I will have a bracket open and close, and I will write another query. Here I will say I want select first name and last name from contacts. Contacts is the relationship name between the accounts and contacts. So I'm using the relationship name here. And we learn next time when we talk, or not next time, when we talk about SOQL, we learn how to open and check the relationship and get it. But that's the relationship for the relation we have between context and account. So it tells the SOQL, I want the context for this account. If I run, write the debug statement here, and I print the account object, and execute it, you'll notice here, it didn't show me the context. Let me see if we do it here in the for loop for contact object. Not sure if it should. I'm not sure if it show it or not in the relationships, but here I will loop through them. So I'm saying through the account object dot contacts. So the context that you return for that, I want to debug and print their names. Check, or I will debug only contact object directly. Okay, let's execute it now. Because that's how usually I do it. I go through the list of the relationship and use it in a way or another. So the debug statement for the parent didn't print the relationship, but they are there. I didn't have to do another SOQL to get the context. I was able directly to loop through them using the relationship name, because I did a subquery with the relationship name. I got the fields that I'm interested in. Then I loop through them one by one. And it's as if it's returning a list of contacts. So I'm looping through them with for each, and I'm printing one by one. So that's a replacement on how we can get parent and child in one go instead of having 2 queries. Let me put this for you in the chat as well, in case you want to try it. I put it in Slack as well if you don't have chat after we close the video. Okay, any question about this topic, like how we can work with parent and child? Okay, so next time we'll continue the topic as well. We'll talk about generic sObjects and what does that mean and how it can be used. And then we'll be working or discussing the best practices when working with DML statements, working with sObjects, what to do and what to avoid to do. We touched base a bit about them today, about bulkification, about using Database.Insert instead of insert if you want to have all or none or partial success. But next time we'll talk about the generic sObjects and we'll talk about the best practices working with the sObject. I can give you as well the homework ahead of time. Like usually we give the homework after the end of the topic, but it's very slow. I will try to put it for you in the chat here, the homework, in case someone wants to give it a go and try to play with it and see how they can go far in the homework. And if you have a question as well, send me. And if you have solutions that you want me to check, please use GIST to submit like the work so I can comment on it easily and see the changes. If you do changes in the future, like based on my comment, it will be easier for me to go through them. This is the last one. So this is the homework, not necessary that you do it now. And some of the topics like the generic, this one, we didn't cover it yet, we'll cover it next week. But if you want to give it a go and see how far you can get the homework done, feel free to do that. And it was great to have everyone in the session today. If you missed the previous sessions, I encourage you to check the YouTube channel, Code with Sally. We covered the basic topics first and we start increasing. So it would be a good idea to have a quick look at which topics you don't know and learn more about. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week.